In 2005, Americans burned 2 trillion pounds of coal for their electrical and heating needs. That is more weight than if every single human being on the planet stood on a scale at the same time. That is 1 year's usage, and that was 5 years ago.
This is mountaintop removal. This is where most of the coal comes from.
Got something to die for. Heal me, help me see. What the hell did I lie for? I'm fighting private wars again. Just second thoughts of win-win-win. So peel me off the hood. That's something to die for.
Mountaintop removal is a cheaper, faster, and more deadly way to mine coal. But how does it work? You begin with a mountain. You blast off the top with explosives. In fact, 3 million pounds are used against West Virginia mountains daily. And then you harvest in the coal seams. Just like when you dig a hole in your backyard, the earth naturally expands once soil and rock are removed, so that not all of this removed soil will fit back in. This leaves mining engineers little choice other than to dump the excess into the valleys below, where streams and creeks establish watersheds, creating what are called valley fills. Hard metals and chemicals are found naturally in rock all the time. As long as the rocks remain inside the mountain, we are safe from their effects. However, when we blast them off the mountain, all of these toxins are exposed. If placed in a water source, such as these small rivers and streams, the water source will become contaminated with the toxins, putting all those who drink it at risk. Thus, mountaintop removal presents one of the most serious public health concerns to the region and soon the entire southeastern United States. As drinking water becomes poisoned, residents have literally begun to fight for their lives.
As frightening and disturbing as this may be, the reality is that 54% of this nation's energy comes from coal. Coal runs everything. It heats the water that we clean ourselves with. It allows us to communicate with our friends and family. It runs the internet and computer systems. It lights our homes. And it provides over half the energy we need to save lives every day. And finally, this university would not function without coal. Imagine all of this cut by half. There's no way around it. We need coal. The question that we must ask ourselves has now become, what is the cost of being coal dependent in this nation, especially in regards to public health?
This is important to you because coal affects the way you live your life every day. We need to be aware of where this energy comes from, the controversy surrounding it, and how it affects our friends and neighbors' health and livelihood. What is in coal country's water today will inevitably be in yours tomorrow.
The main goal for the industry is to maximize profit. They don't care about people who has to live around these areas, or what happens to the water, or what happens to the air, or what happens to the land.
Our travels took us through the twisting hollers of Cabin Creek, West Virginia, that bear the scars of coal mining, from the dilapidated dwellings to the monstrous coal trucks. This was textbook Appalachia. As we left the paved road and headed for the summit, vast moonscapes of blasted earth and sculpted quarters replaced the rolling peaks that typically define this land. We soon arrived at Kafer Mountain, an active surface mining site that spanned as far as the eye could see.
Just 2 mountains over from the upper Big Branch Creek mining disaster that recently killed 29 miners, where we stood was technically considered a reclaimed mine site. In just shy of 2 years of active surface mining, Kafer Mountain summit had been stripped over 500 feet.
One of our leaders, Chuck Nelson, was a former coal miner of 30 plus years with Massey Energy. He's now an adamant activist against mountaintop removal. He has watched as a community he grew up in been devastated by poor water quality, employment exodus, and mounting health crises.
My name's Chuck Nelson. I grew up on Coal River and spent my entire life there. I worked 30 years. I'm a retired underground miner, and now I'm a volunteer for the Ohio Valley Environmental Coalition. I'm a volunteer community organizer.
He explained to us how heavy metals affect water quality. When he turns on his faucet, selenium, arsenic, lead, and other toxins make his drinking water unsafe. He explained the problem he's witnessing and shared some personal stories of the devastating health effects.
These people that are dying here because of what the coal company is doing to our watersheds. It wasn't until we got the community together and we started passing around a notebook that says, if you have your family has any illness, write it down, and so they'd write it down. And we said, well, there's only one thing that connects all of y'all, is that you drink well, you're all on well water. That's where you get your drinking water. That's your drinking source, that's your water source, that's your life. Y'all are living on well water. So when we started testing the water, we've been finding out a lot of heavy metals in it, because the heavy metals will be in the water before the water turns black. So by that time, a lot of people's already contaminated. At that time, we didn't realize it was, the water contamination. And I watched him get worse and worse until he died. And then come to find out, this was like in the early 90s. And maybe 3 years ago, here I am in the same community, finding out that there's a whole lot of brain tumors in these small communities. 80% of the people had their gallbladder taken out. It showed this boy, 22-year-old, named Josh McCormick. They was interviewing him in the hospital. He's laying there in the bed. He don't have no hair because he's had so much chemo. The only thing he did was drink a gallon of Kool-Aid made with well water every day. And before they could air that and get it, to the news stations and air it, put it on TV, that boy died. You see people just dying off, and at young ages. It was a little kid in printer, wasn't 3 years old, had crown, his whole mouth was full of crowns where the heavy metals in the water was so corrosive that it eat the enamel off his teeth. And it was on the front page of the New York Times. They've done the test. They know what the results are. The same thing that's in people's drinking water is the same contents of the slurry. What kind of life are they going to have when they grow up on this river? It's not just an isolated issue. It's not just Coal River. It's 4 states here we're talking about. And it concerns a lot of people.
Chuck had mentioned the coal slurry, which is the forgotten side effect of the politically popular clean coal movement. Clean coal is essentially coal that has been washed with detergents and chemicals so that it burns cleaner. But all of this dirty coal residue has to go someplace. The slurry is either placed in gigantic slurry ponds or injected into old underground mines. Either way, there is no way to make sure that these highly toxic chemicals don't infiltrate the groundwater. One such slurry pond is located directly behind Marsh Fork Elementary School. This slurry pond holds an estimated 2.8 billion gallons of toxic coal waste. That is enough sludge to fill over 4,240 Olympic-sized swimming pools. There are many of these across Appalachia. Imagine going to school as a child, knowing full well that slurry dams have failed in the past, as was the case with the Buffalo Creek disaster of 1972, which caused environmental devastation 40 times greater than the infamous Exxon Valdez oil spill.
Julian Martin, a retired chemical engineer, was kind enough to share his knowledge of stream quality and his love for the region.
Mountains that I love, that I lived in, played in, hunted in, driven by for years and years and years, that are disappearing.
He spoke of a study that found a correlation between stream contamination and deformities in fish, such as both eyes on the same side of the head and curved spines. He implies that if this is what water is doing to the fish, imagine what harm it is causing humans. Julian then directed us to a study by Dr. Michael Hendricks of West Virginia University, showing that coal-producing counties have higher incidences of major health conditions, including heart and lung disease, as opposed to non-coal-producing counties. Finally, Julian left us with these words.
Win, lose, or draw, I do not want the coal companies having the last say on this. Hopefully to the very end of my life, hopefully, I will point out that they're lying, and that their lying is destroying West Virginia, and it's destroying everything that I hold dear, and it's destroying the future.
We learned a lot with all the people we talked to and the things we saw, from blasted mountains to enormous power plants to people desperate to save their community. But the most shocking part of all of this
is that all of this is happening in the United States, the most powerful and wealthiest country the world has ever seen. The fact that we have people who cannot drink their water is not only unethical, it's a disgrace.